Yo, we got a great ass show for you for today. Look, man, we got some subjects on it. Yo, we're gonna be talking about South Africa's win again in the Rugby World Cup, of course. WXV results. Tier 2. Is it in trouble? Is it dying? Eddie Jones is done. It's done in Australia. The experiment is over. British Lions Super League coming in, HBCU Rugby scores, and so much more. Y'all, we got a great one coming through. Yo, let's hit this intro.
I think the minute I stepped on a practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team. And I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro. Right.
And I walk around with a rugby ball sometimes and they're like, what is this child on?
It looks like it was a heavy hit.
It's up, it's not up.
You know, that's the first time I played like professionally.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there's two Scottish guys, and they said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
That rugby is a game for all shapes and sizes, all cultural aspects.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are awesome."
Yo, man, I am excited for today, man. Welcome to Rugby Swag. My name is Gift Time at Bailu. This is a show where we get to talk to people about the things that they've done in rugby and being able to create, as well as what's happening on the day-to-day news. Yo, my camera is messy right now. I got to get this thing right. There we go. All right. Man, it's been a long day, y'all. Look, sometimes one of the hardest things to be able to do is to be able to set everything up on time and in the place that you want it to be. But, hey, we're going to make it happen no matter how late it gets. And we're going to get this going on. But first and foremost, y'all, I really need you guys to remember to absolutely like and subscribe here on the YouTube page, or definitely, if you can, go ahead and hit up any of our social medias. That is Rugby Swag Show on Instagram. That is Gift a Bailu on X. That is Gift Time Rugby on Facebook. YouTube.com right here. YouTube.com/GiftTimeRugby, and of course TikTok at GiftTimeRugby. And of course, if you want to be able to continue hearing on the podcast, because so many people are listening on the podcast, thank you so much for all of y'all that are able to do that. Please go ahead and let your friends know they can listen to the show fully on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, on iHeartMedia, and a plethora of other platforms that I don't even use. I basically just use the first two, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, I mean, look, it is what it is, you know. But, you want to give as many platforms as possible because you want to give as many options to be able to catch it where you are. I want to be in your place. But we have an amazing show for you for today. This one is going to be, man, there's some stuff to talk about. Look, as I said at the top of the program, we got a lot of subjects to go down. So before we get started, I definitely want to go and send a little love to the people that help us pay our bills. So we'll be back right after this ad. So you know. Yo, I'm going to let you get right back to it, but I want to talk to you about one of my favorite brands that are out there right now. Actually, I'm going to show you right quick. This is Ketogenic Coconut Bread Mix. This is a specialty flour blend that allows me to be able to eat almost whatever cakes that I want. Now, coconut is not typically one of my favorite flavors, but this has absolutely killed. And it's not just because it has great taste, not because it's just easy to make, but it's because it is absolutely not going to destroy my stomach. It is gluten-free, but not nasty. This is something that has been going on, and this company, Health Enhanced Food, has so many other options to be able to do and provide and customize to the needs that I want it to. And this is something that I think we all know, especially in this world. It's hard to eat grain flour nowadays. It's not good. It's destroying the stomach. People are getting new diseases, and you need to have some new alternatives. So I suggest definitely go check out Health Enhanced Foods. See what kind of bread you can make. And no, it takes 20 minutes to be able to make something from it. They have a slew of options, and they are well knowledgeable in their ingredients. Everything is transparent. Everything is made in the U.S. and then some. So in the meantime, if you guys could support the show and go to Health Enhanced Food, and you can use coupon code RugbySwag to be able to get 10% off your first purchase order. That's Rugby Swag. And you guys can go ahead and get your bread journey going on today. That's just your cakes, your pies, your bread, and of course, with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming around, you're going to need it. HealthEnhancedFoods.com. Let's get back to it. Yo, y'all, that is what we are about to go through. Man, look, this is a real one. So, look, I don't want to waste any more time because I already got you guys on one. So let's talk about our first subject for the day. Man, South Africa wins the RWC, the Rugby World Cup. Man, look, I got to get my music up and going. Got to get my music up and going. All right, y'all. Man, if you guys didn't get a chance to watch it this weekend, you missed out on a real one. This was the match of matches. South Africa finally able to get a second one, get it over the top. And when I mean by over the top, I mean they were able to finally win the leaders of the Rugby World Cup all-time championship lead with 4, officially beating the All Blacks 12-11 in an absolute nail-biter. This was a hard-pressed game the entire bloody way. I mean, if you want to talk about hard-nosed, strong bully ball, this was the game to be able to go watch. Now, there was a lot that went into the setup for it, especially when it came to early stages of what people's perceptions were on the bench setup for South Africa, which was the 7-1 bench. And I had to go online and actually show my foreignness when it comes to rugby, only in this instance. This was because I didn't fully understand what that meant, but 7-1 meaning 7 forwards in reserve with 1 back in reserve. And that meant no reserves for the scrum half, no reserves for the fly half. So the people who distribute out the ball the most were absolutely going to be forced to have to play. And it was even more so because if Bob de Klerk for South Africa, who was the scrum half, had gotten hurt, it would have been Cheslin Colby, who was the dope-ass winger on the side. He would have had to move into scrum half. So everybody's just on it, just the absolute risk in play and everything. I mean, dude, you got to listen to some of these stories that people were trying to throw out. Of course, now the video doesn't want to work. Second. Well, all right, no worries. But it was incredible, the amount of people who were just so against it, whether they were calling it lack of the spirit of rugby and the moral ethics of doing a 7-1 split or the insanity that goes into it. But you know what they say? No risk, no reward. If you ain't trying, if you ain't putting it all on the line, you truly ain't trying. I think technically it's you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But we're not going full Al Davis over here. Our South Africa, man, absolutely utilized their strength. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of conversation in terms also in the way that the game was played. Looking at some of the stats before we get into that, man, All Blacks definitely had the attacking stats. They won in time of possession, 60%, had the most territory, 53%. Balls played, it was almost double the amount that South Africa had. Number of carries, almost double the amount South Africa had. Broken tackles, literally almost 2.5 times the amount that South Africa had. 36 broken tackles versus South Africa 13. Line break 7 versus 3. Total passes 215 to 83. Offloads, All Blacks actually had less offloads. They had 4, South Africa 7. And then you had bad passes, which was 15 to 4. New Zealand, I mean, if you're passing more, you're going to have more bad passes. I mean, that's kind of the way that it goes. And then, of course, rucks and mauls, that was favored to New Zealand 5-1. And again, you know, New Zealand really did have a great offensive plan because they're a spread rugby team that knows what exactly they're trying to do. They're trying to wear you out on the edges. and they really, really went for it. But this is where the difference always makes a plea. The best offense versus the best defense. And I said, South Africa has one of the best defense. Mind you, don't get me wrong. I thought that New Zealand was going to get this based off the mental game. It was a 1.5 point scored difference in terms of the betting line. I thought New Zealand was going to actually take this one. And no, I mean, give it to South Africa. Look, from defense, dominant tackles, 12-8, turnover tackles, 3-1 in South Africa's favor. Tackles made 209-93 with, what was it, 28 made by one person, the MVP. Tackles missed, obviously 36-13. Again, you're going to have more missed tackles if you're making more tackles. But 209 tackles made versus 93 for New Zealand. Turnovers conceded, that's 15-10. That means that New Zealand turned the ball over 15 times versus South Africa's 10. Number of penalties, South Africa had 10. New Zealand had 5. Again, South Africa was playing a much rougher game. And it just, where it mattered and where they played to their strength played into how the forwards went. You know, you're going to go heavier and harder whenever the fact that you have the guys to back it up and make the hits. And of course, we all know South Africa lost their hooker at the beginning, but they're ready to go, you know. And that was one that I was like, I love me some strong smash mouth gaming. Like, it's one of my favorite things that come with either football or rugby. Like, if you're playing a smash mouth game, I'm not necessarily going to be depending on the high score. And look, doesn't mean that you can't have a high score in smash mouth, but you typically, nor that you have good defense and a low scoring game. But in this one, it was low scoring, but it was tough. Straight South African bully ball. Them Boks were doing what they do. Now, I know the biggest controversy about this came in the 52nd minute. Not even the 50. It was like the 22nd minute. Whenever Sam Cane got the proverbial red card. Now, for me, this is where the one part that really upset me. All right. And I think most of you probably had the same feeling. Like, this is the part that really like irked my soul to its fullest extent. And that was the time it took to be able to award the yellow or red card to Sam Cane. Now, the issue was Sam Cane made a head hit against South Africa's player. I think it was Pollard. He hit him in the head, hit it with the forearm. And, again, for the sake of the safety of the game, he was definitely carded, which I think was completely justified. Wayne Barnes was the referee for this game, absolutely justified in the actions in terms of carding it. But this is where my problem is. It was the time that they took from whenever he was carded down to whenever they actually awarded the red card. So initially it was yellow card under decision. And I'm going to get into TMO, but the trash thing is you had a whole 5 minutes of game that actually ended up playing. So it wasn't like in normal replays in the US where ref has their time, you take your time, whatever it is, whatever that decision is made, as soon as that ref's time is done, that's the decision that's made. Refs get to see what's going on. Audience sees it up on the screen. Everybody gets to know what exactly is being shown, yada, 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 yada. And then you go. This one, I think is the pinnacle highlight of why TMO is absolutely trash. And I know we're going to be talking about Rugby World Cup, and I'm going to go into TMO's trashness after I finish up with this result. All right. But TMO is trash. And the red card was more irking to me because of the TMO and less so because of the switch. And I know there's another instance where Sia Khaleesi made a hit on an All Blacks player and then it was just awarded a yellow card. I mean, guys, it was kind of obvious. Like, there's a difference between whether it was malicious or not, but intentionally using the forearm and hitting at the neck and above versus actually making a tackle, striking on the shoulder, and then the shoulder creating the ripple effect that appeared to make the slap against the chin as an incidental hit. It was an incidental hit. So, I mean, I can understand why that was a yellow card versus the All Blacks one. Like, it's not, I mean, it's nuanced. Like, it's a big difference. Again, the red card didn't bother me. It was the time that it took to get to that red card. It should never have been a wait to decision in the booth. And the last thing about this Rugby World Cup I want to talk about, because I mean, honestly, I think we've talked about it. It's been talked to death. You know, we know everything that's gone on, the controversies, but more importantly, you know, South Africa, you know, getting it back-to-back 2019, 2023, one of the hardest pathways going into the Rugby World Cup, from the quarterfinals playing against number 2 overall France, going up against England, a tough England team, to ultimately get in against New Zealand to be able to get that, which almost reflected similar to what happened 28 years ago, which adds to the storyline. You know, South Africa, you know, having its turmoils with diversity issues within the country, governmental issues, corruption, once again, economic issues and all that. Like, it's almost word for word, outside of the fact that apartheid didn't happen just like a year and a half prior, like it did in 1995. It didn't just end a year and a half prior in 1995, but a lot of issues are still similar to what it was today. And to be able to have the same result is definitely impressive. And that doesn't even take away from New Zealand. New Zealand played a hell of a game. They had a path where they completely cleared out everybody. Obviously, starting off with the loss against France, and then from France on, it was just clearing people. Italy, nah. You know, Portugal, nah. Georgia, nah. Like, ain't nobody worried. Georgia was, but you know, and then getting into the quarterfinals, demolishing Ireland. Almost a vengeance for that. I know it's so long ago, but I'm going to say vengeance for that 2016 beating in Chicago Stadium. What else do you have? You have, obviously, then you have going up against Argentina, shellacking them in a reminder of who is the true rugby championship champion, to finally get to South Africa and honestly played a heck of a game. They were the only team to score a try, which was a chef's kiss of a try all the way through. Like, you couldn't ask for a sweeter looking try. Even if I'm sorry. The try that got denounced that went from Matonga to Avea was chef's kiss. Avea was chef's kiss. The one that went to Bowden Barrett was chaos. Absolute chaos. And I loved every moment of that one. And that one was actually really dope. But the heartfelt moment that I love at the end of all this was when Sia Khaleesi is talking with the press, and he's talking about his friendship with Artie Savea, that these two who are on opposite sides of the squad, both of them obviously competitors, top of their profession, absolutely coming together afterwards in friendship and love. And like their family, and it's like that's a part about rugby that I'm like, yo, that is the ethics, that is the morality of rugby. All right, it's not what you do with your bench stuff, and it's not what you are trying to show out in terms of how the game is supposed to be played. No, it is in knowing that you can play your opponent, and then it's all love afterwards. Like we're fighting family. All right, it's fighting family, which is the best kind of competition. You don't want your family member to win, but you also don't want them to actually like get destroyed, like, you know, outside of to you personally. Like it's all love in the end. Let's bring it up and we'll try this again and keep iron sharpening iron in that. So, man, that's some of the things that I love the most from the Rugby World Cup. And, you know, let me know what you guys think. Of course, if you're catching this on the live, definitely comment in. We're going to get our time settled out. Like right now, I think we're about 8 o'clock Eastern time, which is much, much later than I would have liked. Had a busy day, hard to set everything up. But it is definitely something that we're going to try and do a little bit better. I'm going to try and get it better and get a more consistent time, really like in mid-afternoon. But, you know, we do what we got to do. So let me know. Otherwise, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think within whether on Instagram, whether on the YouTube comments, or hit us up on any of the DMs. You know, I'm easy to access. Ain't no thing. Fast forward, you know. Okay, so let's move on to the next set after the Rugby World Cup. Like I said, I'm going to talk TMO a little bit later because I have a lot to speak about for that one. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the WXV tournament. This was the last week for WXV Tier 2 and WXV Tier 3. Tier 1 has one more game left, one more round left this week. Basically, championships are going to be England versus New Zealand. Again, there's no knockout. There's no relegation for them. So basically, this is just like, hey, whoever wins. We're going to be able to have smack talking skills, and we'll have a little bit of a ranking thing. But I mean, it doesn't actually honestly matter very much, whatever the end results are going to be for that. Man, we already got bots out here. All right. Anyways. But WXV2, man, this was the one. This is where USA is in. USA, about midway round, wasn't really going to do much. They had just lost to Scotland. They beat Samoa, and they played Italy in this one. But ultimately, Scotland and Italy were topping the charts for this round. And then for WXV3, again, it was coming down to Ireland and Spain, who was going to be able to end up winning it all and end up going to relegation. Whoever wins in WXV3 is going to be able to relegate up back to WXV2, and whoever is in WXV2 at last place would fall down to WXV3 for next year. So some of the scores that we had, Scotland took on Japan, beating them 38-7. South Africa took it absolutely to Samoa after coming off the loss last week, and ended up beating Samoa 33-7. USA would lose to Italy 30-8. We're going to talk about that. In WXV3, Fiji, who has come purely into their own. Fiji women have come into their own since since 2020, 2021, going into the Olympics. That team has become hard to know. I remember what they were in 2014. Not fragile, but they were quiet. It was quiet, and they were feeling themselves out. But after the pandemic, they turned on another notch. Boom, they became something. Fiji destroyed Kazakhstan 118-0. Kenya, let's go over the top on Colombia 21-5, and Ireland ending up beating Spain to be able to get relegation into WXV2, beating them 15-3. Now let's talk about this Italy versus USA game. As I said before, this one isn't one that was going to be a big changer for the USA. Beating Samoa, it kept them somewhere in the mix, at least of having a win. Bottom tiers were really between Samoa, South Africa. Japan was kind of in the middle, at least to some extent. So there wasn't to worry about relegation. But for Italy, this was a game that was going to make the difference between whether or not they were going to be able to win this year's tournament or coming in second place. And what was the expectations needed for them to get through was that for Italy to win over Scotland for the WXV tournament, Italy was going to have to win by 25 points and score 4 tries to be able to get the bonus point to get the win over Scotland. Scotland, however, obviously had already finished their game by the time this one went down, beating Japan, as I said, 38-7. The USA in this one, though, was a lot of testing. Now, Mason Haig, who is the interim coach for USA Rugby, basically said, hey, I'm basically trying to just see what the girls can do. I want to be able to warm up the USA girls and see, how they can perform in this next setup, and see what we got for the future, which everything is supposed to be leading for the 2025 Rugby World Cup women's, and being able to, get them ready, because this is a young team. I had a feeling like this game wasn't going to be very favorable for the USA women. Obviously, the Scotland game was a really good indicator. But again, Scotland is a really veteran team who really knows what they're doing. They play pro. They have consistent games. They do what they do. It wasn't surprising. Italy is in a similar boat. They're not as good as Scotland, but they've been proficient. Watching this game, you kind of saw it. Like, again, you see the sparks that were happening through it. With the USA women, you definitely were able to see the big breaks that they were able to do. They got players that can sneak in. The one issue they had was tackling, and this was against I'm not going to lie, a little bit of a sloppy Italy team. Their passing wasn't going that great. I think Italy was a tad bit slow, but I think conditioning kind of caught up with everybody, and Italy just had better conditioning overall, especially whenever they turned up in the second half. It was a close game at halftime. I think it was like 7-3 at halftime. It was a close game, but again, conditioning and experience goes over. USA just was getting ground down. Great try that they ended up having in that second half. But ultimately, Italy took it. But this is where it goes, a spoiler, man. Those 8 points that USA did, that ended Italy's campaign. Italy would fall to second. Scotland would take the win and get the first ever WXV2 trophy, which means at least they get the ranking. All right, they're gonna be they're top of the second half of the top 12 teams in. They're number 6. No, they'll be number 7 ranked team in the world versus everyone, because they can't relegate up for another 2 years. So great. Like, awesome. So I'm happy for it. It's actually a really good tournament. Like I said, the WXV1 is happening. Obviously, it's all played on Rugby Pass TV. And even though I'm not really talking that much WXV1 because I don't think they need that much. England versus New Zealand is definitely one of the premier rivalries that has been started since 2017 Rugby World Cup. At minimum, whenever England really started paying out their women to play, that is two styles. Open style for New Zealand with speed typically, and of course the strong. And I talked about this on the Rugby Odds show. England has a big team. They're a thick team. They're a power team. They smash people. They're not one of my favorite teams, despite that, but they smash people, and it's a good little mix-up. I mean, the Rugby World Cup, they played each other just recently, and New Zealand took it up, and that was a great game. So I would suggest getting a chance to watch that if you do have a chance to. But otherwise, man, shout out to WXV, shout out to the U.S., Cape Town, and I'm glad that they were able to get this thing going on the way that it was supposed to, and see what we can make of the tournament. All right, man, that's a great recap on that. Next subject I want to talk about is about the Tier 2 and the issues that people believe that are had with Tier 2 rugby. Is Tier 2 rugby over? Is Tier 2 rugby over? Now, man, a lot came after the announcement with the Nations Cup. We talked about it last week. All right. Nations Cup, obviously the top 12 teams, the Six Nations teams, the Rugby Championships teams, plus Fiji and Japan compete in the Nations Cup Tier 1. There'll be no relegation for a minimum 6 years. Tier 2, the U.S. will have a chance to go through Tier 2, going through the Pacific Nations Cup. That involves Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, and including now Japan, Canada, and the USA, which ironically, the USA getting a chance to play Japan will be the one chance that they'll get a chance to play a Tier 1 team, quote, quote, for the better part of the next 6 years. So it's definitely an interesting whole situation, but it was lost with a lot of vitriol that went along with it. And it goes back to what I want to say about TMO, and I'm going to keep teasing that TMO because TMO's trash. But my issue came in a lot of the response. Now, this person, Tier 2 Rugby, this account is probably one of the dopest accounts, one of the biggest supporters of Tier 2 Rugby in the world. I honestly think they're the only ones that follow specifically Tier 2 Rugby to the closest extent. And we're talking about across the board. They follow from the local side. I know they've shared a lot of my content. So this is not me shitting on Tier 2 Rugby, T2 Rugby on X. Definitely check them out. My because is the mindset. All right. It is the absolute mindset and a little bit of defeatist. And he was just the example that was found, but he was not the only because I don't know who they are. They were the example that was found, but they're not the only one that has been saying this. And what Tier 2 Rugby had tweeted out was it's going to be much harder to care much about so-called Tier 2 Rugby and sell it as a fan from now on. Always had faint hopes it could improve, but now chances of increased global competitiveness has been confirmed, held back basically for decades, if not more. So what is the point? And for me, like I couldn't get with this one. I couldn't get with this sentiment here. Like Tier 2 is over. Tier 2 is done because of the fact that we're blocked out of the Tier 1. No Tier 2 nations really are going to be able to play a full Tier 1 nation for at minimum 6 years in test rugby. You know, obviously teams that have players that play in the professional league will be able to play with Tier 1 players, but those Tier 2 nations will not have absolutely will not have a chance in the new international test window to be able to do it. But for me, I think this is a real big positive for Tier 2. I genuinely think this is a positive, and here's why. When it comes to Tier 1, I think there's been a very strong lockhold over the idea of how rugby has grown. I speak a bit in terms of the way that people talked about the 7-1 bench for South Africa. Basically, it being such a disruption to the concept and the morality and the ethics and the way that rugby is being played, that you should not be doing this and it should not be allowed. To the fact that people wanted to be able to outlaw it. It's almost reminiscent, if you're in the U.S., to the Eagles and the tush push, which is a play that the Eagles do that is almost, they want to liken it to a mall in essence. But like it's considered this unbeatable play that the Eagles have because they found a way to master play. When it comes to Tier 1 and Tier 2s, I think there's been such a way that Tier 2 nations have felt that there's no choice but to try and follow in the footsteps of those that are, in essence, far more qualified at winning top-level games as it is with the Tier 1s. And why wouldn't you? Of course, they're consistently beating and winning, and they've been doing this for literally 100 years. So why not try and follow their model? And my argument for that is I don't think that the Tier 1 models work for a newly developed or a modern era starting rugby environment. So if your rugby program's really kicked off around the 1960s, 1980s, 1990s, even more recently, early 2000s, and to today, you can't use Tier 1 concepts. Like Tier 1 have culturally preset concepts that are in New Zealand that have been playing for hundreds of years, and they basically have like a limited amount of resources in terms of population, in terms of things to do in there. You can't follow it in like England because they're not only the originators of rugby, but they've also been playing this for literally the 100+ year, almost 200 years. France is the same way, where you have all these access points where they created a bubble in and of itself by means of being able to start. So you're not learning how to evolve the game. You're not learning how to start up. It's like trying to compete against a corporation. It's like trying to do a small business and using corporate tactics to be able to build your business. It doesn't work. There's too much longevity. But the unfortunate part is Tier 2s don't have much. You don't typically have the coaching. You don't typically have the audience. You don't typically have the resources financially because you don't have the audience. You don't have the coaches. And the players usually start later. So you have to come with a different model. And I think disassociating from the Tier 1s is going to force a mechanism for those Tier 2s to actually have to remember that they're doing guerrilla style development in rugby. For example, whenever American football was kicking off and really starting to reach its spot, in that point, we're talking about the late 80s, early 90s, when they were really trying to turn up the game. When you got cats, when you got pets, when they were turning up the game, baseball at that time was the definitive number one sport, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. Even though we got a lot of heyday stuff and people can talk about what the NFL was like in the early 90s, 80s, 70s, it really was like the second tier sport and kind of bordering on third tier at that point in time, because in the 90s, Michael Jordan shot the NBA up to levels that were like unimaginable. They've never been reached by the NBA like that again. And like I said, baseball was number one. So what was football doing? Yes, they had at least the collegiate end and being able to have that kind of history in it. But from a professional standpoint, it was still like not kicking. So what did they do? They changed the programming. And I know a lot of Americans will know this if they are paying attention. What are some of the favorite movies that we had whenever we were young? Little Giants, Remember the Titans, Any Given Sunday. And then on top of that, you'd have little cartoons. I remember one, you got to go back. I'm a 90s kid, so all my cartoons are from the 90s. There was something called A Night in King Arthur's Court. It was King Arthur and the Round Table. It was an action film. And what it basically was that Merlin in the place where King Arthur was, I don't know why I forgot the name, but Merlin was trying to be able to find his new King Arthur, and after the one that was defeated, he opened up his magic and found a bunch of football players and brought them into the realm, and then the captain of the football team ended up being King Arthur, and his football squad ended up being the Knights of the Round Table. This seems like it's very innocuous, but it wasn't. What it did was it implemented the seed of football into our young minds as kids. Then we started seeing football mentioned in movies, in Looney Tunes, in just basic stuff everywhere, constantly. Ah, thank you, Brandon. Camelot. Thank you. My boy Brandon coming in with the winner, Camelot, for King Arthur and the Round Table. But essentially, we started inoculating into our minds. And so some of our favorite football movies, easy to go. Varsity Blues, Any Given Sunday, Remember the Titans that almost got an award. And it makes it easier. So then whenever the late 90s come and suddenly the heyday of football starts to increase, now you have a bunch of kids who already know. They might not have been watching it, but they already know about football. Add to that the Super Bowl, and you're creating that to be more an event. The halftime show, you're creating that to make it more of an event. And then now the increase of the talk about the draft increases our attention. And now we're watching people go from, well, I played in high school or in middle school because I watched it. And I didn't even know I wanted to play, but I felt like everybody's playing because everywhere I'm going to seems to show me that football is number one everywhere you go. And don't get me wrong, other sports were doing it. MLB, we did buku baseball movies, Angels in the Outfield, Field of Dreams, which are things that help lead to baseball's rise. But if football really started killing it in the late 90s and 2000s, being it and inoculates in. And if you assume, which is how we normally go as humans, a semi-FOMO effect, everybody's playing. This is the way that you normally go. This is how it's done. Oh, you have adults to be able to confirm their time playing. Oh, you have other friends of yours that are like, oh, I played. Then you have your league that shows, oh, man, I can be on the big screen. I can be on TV. I can make money. But it all starts as a cycle. That is how you start to recreate your development. And it starts in that point. And tier 2, I think, needs to jump back to remember that they need to start from that ground level and then move up. There's such a hype about trying to get commercialization at the top, but you've done nothing to be able to build your fan base. And you add, like, in one programming, again, I always like to use Mr. George Hook because he speaks a lot of truths because he's been in the game for a long time. If you don't know, George Hook is an Irish former rugby player, coach, broadcaster, freaking legend overall. And he was saying, he was like, another issue is that tier 1s have all the resources. They have the money. But the funny fact of it all, most of the money that goes from tier 1 rugby teams come from tier 2 countries. Adidas, Germany, tier 2. Nike, USA, Land Rover, USA, Jeep, USA, like it's tier 2 resources matriculating over to tier 1 countries because they've done the stuff to be able to have the generational, cultural, quasi-organic build of an audience that just simply has to accept it, and hence they're also setting the rules. Don't follow those rules. And I think this is where tier 2 absolutely ends up getting the advantage. If they can absolutely go back to the drawing board, and for the USA, we're looking at 2031 to be able to make this happen. Well, hey, we start doing our programming now, down low, to get that audience base. And you hit them at each level. It's a Disney programming. Perfect example. Disney catches us from the age 0 until we're adults. How? They start us off with Disney cartoons as kids, whether it's things like Land Before Time, or then you go to the movies and you get like the Aladdins and the Beauties and the Beasts. And that works more so whenever you're like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then once you start transitioning into teenage, oh man, now you have Disney Channel shows. You have all these teens that you start to watch as you're a kid. And then what also works is that you get to watch them grow up, and Disney sends them through the funnel to help you gravitate yourself as an adult all the way up to the top, to suddenly you are now watching the major movies, Marvels, now Star Wars. Whenever it was Touchstone, you'd have the adult movies of Touchstone. Now ESPN and basically sports as an adult has you locked in, and you've been in the funnel from day one, right out the womb. And then, of course, the parks become the live events that allow you to be tangibly there, which is what we do with our games. Then the word of mouth allows them to be able to bring more people in, because that's how we work with our youth rugby. Hey, I recommend this. We build these factors here and there. And all of a sudden now you have a consistent flow going through. But it's not just simply, let's do a camp. Let's do let's build our pro team, and let's see if we can monetize in a trickle-down effect. It starts with the kid, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to play. It means that you need them to be able to be viewing the sport, and it allows it to be now an industry as opposed to just a club. And it doesn't make the usage of money as an evil. And once again, Brandon coming in with it. He talks about, my kids watch Bluey, which is Australian. Absolutely. And this is one that I did. And they've never watched football. And that should be interesting. And that is one thing what I'm saying. These cartoons, these kid shows, these elements are one layer that adds to the propaganda of getting people into the sport. That's where tier 2 really has to be able to play their heaviest game. You play the propaganda game. And now that you have social media, of course, we got guys that are from the adult side that will definitely do, skits and parodies, talking about Sam Rugby loves rugby. Even myself, I tend to gravitate more towards the adult side as I'm working back down to the kids side. Fast forward, not to be creepy, but you have it with Squidgy, but from that all works from the adult side, and it makes sense because, especially in tier 2s, most people enter in their adult years, but that's not how you win the game. That's not how you're winning the game. You need to bring those resources back, and that's whenever those resources that have been going to tier 1, they now stay at home. And when I tell you that those tier 1 resources are so necessary, because those tier 1s are hurting right now because they don't have the population, they don't have the financial resource. Of course, RFU definitely is rich, but New Zealand isn't. Australia is falling apart and going into shambles. South Africa has to be able to start working into the URC because they don't have the population or the economy that is sustainable enough for them to hold on their own. That's why they had to leave the Super Rugby League. I mean, they can say it's because the time zone changed, but they were in that for like a decade, almost 20 years, because the money over at Sky Sports is better, and they need to do it because they don't have the population to sustain it. France is doing their thing, but even in there, they're still a third-tier sport, definitely behind basketball and soccer. Easily. Same with England, which is more soccer and cricket. Easily within that. And Wales is too small to be able to sustain it on their own. Ireland can't do it. You're talking about a population of 8 million people. Like, it doesn't work. So the gripe ultimately that there is a defeatist nature, that tier 2 no longer can continue on because tier 1 isn't. And you know who's a great example of showing that is absolute BS is Argentina. Argentina is an economically deficient country that has somehow managed to be top of the tier in both soccer, which is clearly number 1, and they won their World Cup, and basketball and rugby. And they've managed. And what was the secret that they even used? They sent their guys over to the professional league, steal the lessons, get the experience, and bring that back home. Now, mind you, they might not be getting to they might not be winning Rugby World Cups, but honestly, it's only been like 4 people who have won a Rugby World Cup, so it doesn't really say anything in, 34 years, 35 years, only 4 people have won a Rugby World Cup, so that doesn't even mean anything. The fact that Argentina have been in the semifinals twice, they made it to quarterfinals, and they technically don't have the resources, nor are they receiving venture capital money either. So it's like, it can be done. There's no reason at all that we as a tier 2 nation should ever feel some type of way that we're not going to be able to compete or manage or do what we need to do in that fashion. So it was just something that really hurt my heart to be able to see people do it. And then it pissed me off because I was like, you're a competitor. You're a competitor. Fans don't come because of tier 1 nation. Ain't nobody in the U.S. really know anybody else as a tier 1. The All Blacks did because they have a brand and they do the haka. Other than that, ain't nobody really give a crap about it. But you can make them give a crap in your own country if you get it done in a manner that actually functionally creates it. Invictus showed that people will actually watch it, and it almost got an award. That is the propaganda that you're trying to do, but you got to do it from the bottom up. But let me know what you guys think. I know I went on long. I don't care. This is what the point of this is. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what your feelings are on the changes that happened with the Nations Cup and where you feel tier 2s. And hey, if I'm wrong, let me know what the significance is that a tier 2 must play a tier 1 as opposed to being able to play tier 1 players in other facets. You let me know because I'm okay. I'm willing to learn, but I haven't felt like the proof has been shown to be absolutely necessary to do that. Outside of being able to scope their talent. Like I don't feel like teams learn that much from 100 to 10 butt whooping, a 70 to 6 butt whooping. I don't feel like a tier 2 nation actually learns that much as a result from it. But playing alongside tier 1 players, that does make a difference. Playing alongside. So, you get your professional league or you go there, that makes a change. And that hasn't been bubbled out. So there. All right, y'all. All right. Let's get to another ad real quick. And when I get back, we're going to talk the TMO situation. We're going to talk Eddie Jones going to Japan. And also this new proposal, possibly, of a British Lions Super League. So we'll be right back with more.
Hey everybody, this is just the break train sending out a personal little video diary to all you people out there where I am going to document me riding most of the way between Singapore and Tokyo for the 2019 Rugby World Cup.
I needed help, and it came from Louisiana.
We in Singapore, baby!
Gift from Gift Time Rugby USA is a extroverted tour de force. But what unites us is a hunger for adventure.
Off to KL, Kuala Lumpur. Woo! Yeah! Woo!
Gift, where are we?
We're in
Vietnam! Mount Fuji, baby!
Our love of Asian rugby culture.
1, 2, 3, center!
Yeah!
Rugby is starting to develop here in Cambodia for women as well.
Valkyries, the mighty Valkyries!
We're out here, we're running out of energy, we're running out of money, and we're feeling isolated. And yet at that critical moment, friends, family, sometimes complete strangers come on board. Before you know it, we're back in the game.
Tokyo, here we come!
Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. Watch the full adventure at crugby.vhx.tv. That's C like SEE rugby.vhx.tv. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. Yo, I just want to do another quick reminder. Y'all, please go ahead and follow us on Instagram, Rugby Swag Show. You can follow me on X at Gift A Bailu or at Gift Time Rugby, wherever you choose. Definitely catch us on. You can like us on Facebook at Gift Time Rugby. Definitely on YouTube at Gift Time Rugby. Twitch as well. We're doing this streaming on Twitch as well. If you want to catch us there, Gift Time Rugby. And then, of course, on TikTok, where we're starting to pick up a little bit more of the pace over there at Gift Time Rugby. And then, of course, if you're listening to the pod or you just can't watch it and you need to be able to listen to it, definitely check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartMedia, and the best. I mean, absolutely, definitely check this all the way out, man. Let's go. Let's go. All right. So I want to get us into conversing about TMO. I didn't get the graphics for this because, honestly, I forgot to write down the graphics for it. I should have probably done something about it, but it doesn't really matter. So TMO really has been something that has stood out for me. And I think this one actually showed the most issues when it came to the Sam Cane red card against South Africa. So set the scene. Once again, Sam Cane, he makes a hit on South African player. I believe it's Pollard. I can't remember exactly. And it leads in with the forearm making the tackle, hits the neck of Pollard, hits the head of Pollard, gets called on a yellow card, which is absolutely correct. It should have been called immediately. And then it was sent to TMO to be able to do the review. Well, in that moment, that should have been where the final card was actually made, right? TMO has already been set. You're looking at it. You're seeing the slow-mo going through. Kane is sent off with a yellow card, but it said it's played on decision. 10 minutes in the sin bin. 10 minutes in the sin bin is what Sam Cane needed to have. 5 minutes went by. You're going, well, why are you still reviewing it? Game's still going on. Whole action is happening. And then it comes later on in the middle of play that, oh, Sam Cane's card has been upgraded from yellow to red because of intentional hit and yada, yada. And in my mind, I'm just like, what the hell did that have to do with anything? How did you get anything different than you would have gotten into TMO in that moment? And it's that where I think is where TMO has now come to become the true problem of what it is. All right. The real biggest issue has to be that TMO decisions need to be made in the time period that the decision making is being made by the ref and the booth up there. Replays and reviews of games is not unusual. And I always speak to the factor that, you know, in NFL, in college football, in NBA, but really I'm going to NFL and college football, replays and reviews by the refs is a commonality. You know, obviously in NFL, you got 2 chances to call for it. A review happens after every touchdown. In college, you have to call for it. Review is done after every touchdown and to determine whether the play is confirmed or not. I don't have an issue with replays. I don't have an issue with people taking time to do it. I don't even feel like that part of it disrupts the game. I have an issue that you have to wait until after play is done. That means that you are not only changing the outcome of the game and the strategy of the game after people have now passed that moment, but you are actually trying to make perfection out of something that needs to just be great. And in rugby or in any contact sport, you can't get perfection. It's not possible. It's not even necessary. You know, like I'm going to throw up the great comment. Brandon saying it great. And I know he also said he doesn't mind TMOs, but he says it's a really great thing. Judicials can review later for sanctions at the level, but it's got to be done more quickly on the pitch and decisions. Otherwise, it enrages the fan. And this is where I exactly agree. If you feel like you got a mistake made, then you can deal with it afterwards. And honestly, even if you feel like the refs themselves are making mistakes on the field, either you can put a recommendation on the ref themselves or you get past it. Because if you get to the next game, honestly, fans aren't sitting hyper thinking about the past play, but you will hyper think about a change that was made way after the point where you thought the decision was made. And it can't be something that's that slow. You can't have so many people trying to look at it. You can't have so many slow motions that you feel like you have to get the infinitesimal access to it. Like that is by all means, some fearful action. And I feel like that's the part where rugby doesn't make any sense to be able to be in that position. You are a contact tackle sport. Fear-based decision-making is not a factor that has to be made in this. And fear-based decision-making seems to be the factor that is being made when it comes to these deep-seated decisions for TMO. And now you've got a system that not only is it not trying to create precision in the game, it's actually legitimately determining what the game will actually be. In my feeling, like the Sam Kane situation, I thought that I would say it should have been stayed at yellow. BY, the decision was yellow on the field. I want the refs to have the power on that. If that is something that you don't trust the refs to do after the big ass screen of TMO that everybody is seeing and that you're going through on a regular day basis, going through it for the 5 minutes it took to already do the review, to do another 5 minutes to be able to determine in the middle of play that it's not. That's almost 12 minutes of play time that is lost due to just trying to determine TMO. Then you don't have a system. You are letting outside people do the game. And if they're not at the game, I don't want it. I don't want it. Like, if you feel like it was more malicious than it was, then okay, then they get the red card afterwards and you can go and have the argument. But even at that, there needs to be a pretty thorough review. In the moment, no. And it's not like they got new footage. Not like TMO people got new footage. Not like there's a guy running in. He's like, wait, I got this last one. This is the angle that's going to make all the difference right there. No, that doesn't exist. That's not how this goes at all. That's not how any of this goes. It literally is just simply going to be that you have this one guy, you have that same shot, everybody's seeing it, and then the decision is made. Boom, bam, go on. All right. Boom, bam, it's over. It's something that really pissed me off. I think, what was it? I think it was the Fiji game, Fiji versus England game, where it was like the TMO was replayed almost 4 phases after the penalty was presided. Was it Fiji or was it South Africa? I don't know. You remind me. But it was almost 4 phases after the fraction had been made, the decision had been made, and then it was like, oh, no, we got to roll it back. We got to roll it on back, and it's not going to be counted, and we got to do it all over again. Like, that's stupid. That's stupid. That's not what the point of TMO is. That's not even about the spirit of the game or anything. That's just not the point of TMO. That's not the point of a replay. You don't have technology for that. So in this situation, I feel like World Rugby and their entire ruling system, I'm going to be honest with you, I blame the Brits. One, because the majority of them are running World Rugby. The other reason why is because this is a very British thing that has to be, where you're trying to get the exact measurements. Like, you're not trying to get relative, you're trying to get exactness. You literally are bypassing your funnel system. Your funnel system goes the players and then the referee and then slightly more precision with the replay. And that's it. After that, you're done. I think a great point, Brandon's saying, and look, if you guys want to be part of the conversation, y'all can come in. But right now, my boy Brandon out here doing his thing and giving the conversation. And he's saying it's too long. So for new fans, it's even worse. They're questioning if something new happened that they missed, and they're less confident, engaged fans. Yeah, I think that can be a factor. I don't know if I necessarily feel like that's fully a thing, but I do say that it can create confusion for the game. And whenever you're bringing in new fans into the game, confusion is the last thing that you absolutely need to be able to have with that. So that was my feeling when it comes to the TMO on that one. Let me know what your guys' feelings are with that. Next up, I want to talk about Eddie Jones. Oh, Eddie Jones has now decided to step outside of Australia rugby. He said, y'all, I'm out. Deuces. Here's the fire I leave behind for you. Take this kindling light. Take that. Oh, man, can I tell you how this has been one that I think we've been watching for almost since September. It's been like a month. So basically what has happened is that Eddie Jones stepped down and is allegedly heading over to Japan to take over as the rugby head coach for them. Now, if you don't know, Eddie Jones used to be the head coach for South Africa in 2019. Not for South Africa. I'm sorry, for Japan. Yeah, in 2019. where he helped them get into past the quarterfinals, into the semifinals. They ultimately lose to South Africa, and then South Africa would continue on to win. But Eddie Jones was the one that was supposed to be like creme de la creme when it came with it, you know? Oh, no, I'm tripping. Not 2019. I'm sorry, 2015. The 2015 year. 2019, he was with England. But he helped Japan basically kind of get over the hump, and I think that was one of the reasons they have now officially moved into the Tier 1 and got respected into that realm as well. But Eddie Jones is now former Wallabies head coach. He literally started 10 months ago. All right, 10 months ago, he took over the job out of $5 million, 5-year contract, getting ready for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. The World Cup that is basically the last stand for Australian Rugby Union. If that doesn't go through, that union is broke. All right, another reason why you don't trust Tier 1 models. They don't work necessarily at all, and it's not necessarily they don't work. But Eddie Jones came in and was expected to be a disruptor. The head of Australian Rugby Union, who was a former player. Not a lot of people really have a lot of respect for this guy. He's had probably one of the worst tenures as a president for a rugby union. They sacked the current head coach Renner. Renner, who was ironically Dave Rennie, who was a New Zealander who was a coaching for Australia, which also was one of the many reasons why I think Australia wanted to get rid of him. They did not want to have any more L's to their New Zealand brethren, enough to lose against them, but then to also not be able to have their coach coaching your team. And honestly, Rennie was I don't think he was actually good. I think the program was already going in a downslide. I think it was just a factor that you were watching a downslide happen that was gradually in precision, but a lot of people will say Rennie was actually doing a good job and trying to bring young players in. But honestly, I don't think. I think Aussie Rugby Union really was borrowing from Peter to pay Paul and basically was Ponzi scheming their way into having talent. That's just we've been playing for a long time. We have a lot of Fijians and Samoans that enter into our area, so we're able to utilize these guys to be able to continue playing some high level of rugby, but in reality, we're not really actually doing a good job. And of course, the pandemic showed up. Aussie Rugby Union almost went bankrupt, got a $20 million injection by World Rugby. Now they're ahead. They're borrowing money to be able to pay it off for the Rugby World Cup, because everybody now, after Japan, assumes that the Rugby World Cup can be able to bring in $5 billion in revenue and economic growth for your country, because in Japan, that's how much it brought in, $4 billion, and then another like $1.5-2 billion in economic ripple effect. And so Aussie Rugby Union is like literally sitting on a string. They thought they're going to do something big with Eddie Jones, and it's been a disaster. Number one, Eddie Jones really obviously has been shaky with the media. He was run out of England, despite the fact that England was competitive and they made the finals in 2019 versus what they did now. But they ran in Eddie Jones out in England. Eddie Jones was already shaky with the media. Eddie Jones was shaky with veteran players. He didn't pick a lot of key players that would have been should have probably been part of this roster, because I think he was trying to prep up for 2027. So he was using this 2023 Rugby World Cup as a testing ground. But if you're a Wallaby, you don't know testing. This is like Alabama football trying to be like, hey, we're going to ditch a season and not try and make the playoffs because, we want to be able to make the playoffs for next year. When it counts. No, you always keep winning. LSU, I like that better. You always got to stay winning. So this year, worst historical outcome for Australia. Didn't make the quarterfinals. Lost to Fiji. Close games. Lost to Wales. Like it wasn't their season. Played terribly. I mean, they played tough against mediocre team, played tough against Georgia, but barely beat them. You know, it was a bad look overall. And then midway through, they said during the warm-ups, Eddie Jones was already talking to Japan. So we're not even, this was in September, not even through the middle. I don't think we weren't even out of pool play, obviously, when Eddie Jones started trying to talk to Japan. Japan was about to get their coach for Japan stepping down. So this has been an entire just cluster. And, you know, this man who's had, look, he has a very storied history when it comes to rugby. He has been overtly successful, but people now felt like, you know, maybe his time has passed. Like, people got over the hill, man. This is Belichickian sans the champion. Actually, I would probably liken Eddie Jones to Jim Harbaugh, who's coach for Michigan football team. Like, he's a guy that can come in, he can rebuild the program typically, definitely has taken programs and over-exceeded where they should be able to go. And, you know, this was a situation where I think Australia did. He would have been coming back. But the one thing I will say is that I don't think I saw any single person, or at least very few, that were actually Australia rugby fans specifically, that were happy about Eddie Jones coming back. And I think that speaks a lot of volumes for what it was. And it probably was very much a foreshadowing of what this outcome was going to be. So, Eddie Jones hasn't beaten the Buckeyes. And Brandon said, actually, you know, Jim Harbaugh actually has beat the Buckeyes twice now, actually. So yeah, just remember that. I'm not even a Michigan fan. Don't make me defend Michigan. I don't care about Michigan. I just had to use it as an example. But like, what you call it? But Eddie Jones is definitely one that now it's twilight of his career, but he's controversial. And for me, I like the guy. I mean, he's not great in terms of maybe how this campaign went and how his time in England kind of fell apart, but he's going to grab attention on the mic. He's definitely going to rustle from some feathers, and I think that's always good for rugby. But you have to win. If you're going to do all that, you got to win. And unfortunately, in this situation, he didn't win. So we're going to see. They said in that same article, and I got this one, technically, I mean, it was everywhere about the Guardian and everything like that. But they said in that he is going to be working with the Barbarians with soon-to-be future All Blacks head coach. What's his name? Scott Robertson. That they're going to be with the Barbarians 15s and taking on Wales on November 5th. So, you know, next week they're going to be taking on Wales, and then we'll see what happens with we're going to see what happens with Japan, even though it's pretty much seems to be a set deal and done. They're probably just working out the numbers. Also, Australia doesn't look like they're going to be doing any buyout for – there's not going to be any buyout for Eddie Jones's contract. I mean, it be like that sometimes, right? It be like that sometimes. But moving on, and this it's going to go back. We don't want to do tier 1 things because tier 1 is always in the set of trouble. But, there is talks now that the British and Irish Lions are going to be merging to create a super league. Man, money is a struggle out in these streets, man. We broke in rugby, all right? We doing broke things. So what the article says, I got this article from extra.ie. Initially, I saw it on the Telegraph, but they have a a paywall. So, you get it somewhere else because that's how it all works. But it looks like the British, Irish and British Lions and Europe rugby are trying to look to create another consolidated program. It looks like they're trying to look about 3 years down the line for this to actually come into fruition, but they're trying to find another property to be able to sell to be able to increase money. And this would include putting the URC teams and the English Premiership teams into it. I don't fully understand how this would work, considering that the British and Irish Lions are made up of players that play for the URC and the English Premiership. Like, exactly what are you trying to put together? Like, you're going to remove the best players from Leinster and the Stormers and you know, and all these teams to be able to put the British and Irish Lions so that they can ultimately go, like, bruh, like, why do you guys want to work with tier 1 so badly? They suck at business, bruh. And on top of that, it adds another bubble to, I mean, you're locking themselves in to a fan base that don't even have the capability of holding it. So what are you going to do? You're going to have your international schedule with the Nations Cup. 3 years down the line, you're going to have an international schedule with the Professional Cup, because professional teams also are going to be playing during this time. That also happened during this international test schedule. And you're basically just literally Ouroboros saying your whole thing. It's a snake eating the tail to eat the snake to eat the tail. And you're just like, what is happening? Has everybody lost their mind? Like, your issue isn't the lack of games. The issue is you're literally the lack of resources and your inability to grow outside of your own area. Augustin Pichot said it perfectly. Like, why would you try and isolate out the growth spots that have the population that you need to be able to actually develop the money that is worth it so that you can actually get the returns that you need? On top of the fact that your salaries that you complain about are being so bad are some of the lowest salaries in professional sports. So let's take, Brazil, 250 million people. Nah, we don't want to try and access that audience more. The U.S., man, they've already been effing up so much because of our hands in there. And now that we're in it, it's still iffy. 350 million people. Nah, we don't need that. Oh, man, look at India. 2 billion people. Nah, we don't need to develop that. China, oh, man, I know they got some autocracy and they got some issues, but, that's another 1.8 billion people that are there. Nah, we don't need to go after that one anymore. They're not gonna watch us. Okay, what about Nigeria? Nigeria, hey man, they're already connecting. That is 180 million people that are there. Most of them, over 50% of them, are under the age of 35. Young audience, absolutely willing. They already watch your Premiership Soccer League. Why don't you go ahead and touch that? Nah, we're not gonna do that. We gotta wait for them. Like, this is stupid. This is just stupid. It's the sad result of poor modeling based off of the fact that you have a group of people who do not actually know how to grow rugby. They are actually legitimately, what do you call it? It's what happened when you only know how to culturally, organically have something that was already established 100 years ago, and you just continue to ride the wave. You're just riding the wave. Even using the perfect example, even the NFL understood this. NFL is more profitable than all these leagues together. Is more profitable than all these leagues together. That's including Premiership soccer as well. Premiership soccer, Premiership rugby, URC, top 14. NFL supersedes them almost combined on yearly income of $10 billion, and with an intent of getting up to $10 billion from distribution. And it's actually somewhere around 12 and a half, $15, $12 billion. They even know that they've maxed out their country of 350 million and are entering into the European market, dropping mad games. And it just used to be London, but now it's Frankfurt. Now it's going to Spain and Barcelona. Germany now being Frankfurt, obviously being in Germany. And then obviously the games that play in London. Because you understand that, you got to expand out. You got to build your base. Even including games possibly in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where, again, they've already set a huge set of seeds to be able to build out. They got their play rugby, their play football in Brazil. They've been sending in professional games over to Brazil through Star Plus, which has been great whenever you're here. Like, one place to be able to find most of the games is great. But you basically put your seeds in and build those populations out, and they're going to see the returns on that because they're going to have what the point of their monetary is reach. How much reach can we have? What is the games that we're playing? So this issue with URC and the English Premiership League wanting to merge with the British and Irish lines to create a league, like, it's it's so short-sighted. It's so short-sighted. You're still not solving the problem. You need people. You are a sport who has to play the reach game. That is it. Like, I know they're bringing in Rugby Pass TV, but it's like, yo, you should have been on this back in 2015, whenever it was still coming in. Now that you're in it, you're still not realizing that it's not more games. So let me know what you guys think on this one as well. I mean, it just gets me aggravated in a different way to know that this is something that is in the thoughts, because it's a bad play, and this affects the rest of the world, like the US, how you are able to get in. And it goes back to where those tier 2 resources keep going to tier 1 spots. Man, we need to be robbing these people. All right, they're taking money from us. USA, Germany, India, freaking Netherlands. Like, Netherlands are the venture capital that would fund the Six Nations. Come on, man. So, man, that's my thoughts right there. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about this. In the meantime, we're going to be right back. We got to pay some bills when they're talking about commercialization. So hang tight. We got one more segment for you. And, man, let's call it. So be right back. Y'all, if you are trying to be able to get your name out, whether it's for business, whether it's for work, whether you're just trying to do something personal for a friend or family, you need to stop utilizing social media as the sole place where you put all your stuff. You don't know when the algorithms are going to change on you, and you don't know whenever the rules are going to change. So what seemed like it was okay yesterday might not be today. And what does that mean? You need to have your own home, and that means having your own website. That's where Green Geeks comes into play. Now, Green Geeks is the place where you can create and build your website in the cleanest host in the game. I'm talking about environmentally. Not only that, they'll provide you with a free domain name and free template builder so that you don't even have to think about having to create your website. I've used Green Geeks for almost a decade now, and I have been so satisfied by everything that they've been able to provide for me. No matter whether or not I know what I'm doing or I don't, they have 24/7 support for me every single time I need a question answered, or I need something to be changed, or I need to be updated on any information. And the best part about this is that I'm not limited to any of the websites that need to be used. It uses a WordPress foundation, which allows me to have access to limitless amounts of templates that are available to be able to use for any version of a website that I want to have. And the best thing about it, it costs me less than $5 per month to do. And that can be the same for you. All I needed to do is click the link in the bio. If you're listening, definitely click it in the description. And if you're watching, definitely click it in the description as well. But you guys, this is something that everybody should do. You don't have to just do e-commerce. Your website is the place where you have control over what you want. That's your house, not their house. And go ahead and get that with Green Geeks. Once again, click the link in the description to be able to get your first year at under $5 per month. Guys, it's the best decision. I'm telling you. Let's get back to it. Yo, man, I'm really happy to be able to get back to this. Let's get back into it, where we got HBCU Rugby. Now, I always tell people, look, this is my bread and butter. This is where my babies are. This is where I feel the growth. Whenever I talk about starting from an interior part and creating those seeds, man, HBCUs will 100% be a place where you need to foster it here in the USA for sure. It's not just because it's predominantly black universities and it's just a player home, but it's also a place where culture actually stands. So, right off the bat, I want to talk about what we had happening last week, and that really was going with our game from last week. So we had two games: Howard University men, Howard University women. Howard University men went to Mount St. Mary's. It's a D1 school, all right. But put a little caveat. Howard men actually ended up playing the third division squad for that Mount St. Mary's team, playing in 15s. And the reason why this is actually really, really important is because Howard men, who have been around for just 2 years, they really kicked off their sevens program just this last year, really had it at their most consistent. And this year, they're really working to enter into 15s. This year, they are in their second year with the NCR in the Mid-Atlantic, and they're finding their way through. But this entering to 15s and playing their first regular season 15s game, beating Mount St. Mary's 14-3. Man, this is a big accomplishment. A lot of shout out to Tito Miranda, who is not only the head coach, but he is an alumni of Mount St. Mary's. Formerly, that's where he started playing at and was able to really show out. And look, this is how you build out the confidence, and this is how you access other communities in ways that you don't normally do, because you don't have to play and do rugby exactly the same for exactly everybody else. On the other side of this, man, we had Howard University women. Now, this team is definitely looking to try and get another championship run. All right. They have been absolutely killer this year. Last year, they came in second overall in Division II in College Rugby Association of America, losing a tough one, but really being able to clean out their region. This year, they said, bet. We understand how you have to play, so we're going to play some of the hardest teams. This week, they played Nova Club Rugby, not Nova College, Nova Club Rugby. If you don't know who Nova is based out of Virginia. Nova is a 2-time back-to-back national champion. They are last year, 2023, this past season, they came in second overall. And this Howard University team took on, I would probably arguably say, their second squad, but if they took on their number one, that's wild. But really, I'm more thinking it's their second squad. But they took on their second. Even if they took on the second squad, or even if they took on the third squad, this is a team that knows how to win in Nova Rugby. Howard University women body slapped them 30-0. All right, 30-0. Hey, shout out to GM Catherine Aversanu, who's been absolutely killing it. To their coach Lily Aites, who is a FIU alum. Hey, this women's team is going to be doing damage, and they're going to be doing a lot of things for the future. Just keep watching out, because once again, this is how you change culture. All right, you increase and add it into places where culture is naturally flowing, and also trends culture as well. Because if you don't know, HBCUs and Black colleges trend culture in the U.S., and it technically ripple effects into other parts of the world. So from Howard University to the rest, and of course their B-side squad, Howard's B-side squad took on the DC Furies. Not the result that they wanted, went down 0-33. But hey, you know what? Sometimes it is simply what it is. But I want to give a lot of praise and pride to those two teams, because it's making a difference. Next week we got Prairie View A&M going up against Stephen F. Austin. I believe, if not next week, the week before, but the week after. But man, I'm loving it. If you don't know, definitely check out HBCURugbyClassic.com. Get more information about these teams. Definitely check out the interview also that we did with president of the James G. Robertson and Clive Sullivan Rugby Foundation. My guy Mike Anderson, who runs that, who's the president for it. That is the organization working on getting more rugby into HBCUs and Black colleges. We're moving from just having 2 back in 2018. Now we're at 4 programs, 3 programs, 4 teams in 2023. At the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, we should be up to 6, 7 teams in Southern University, possibly Tennessee State, and as well as Bowie and Coppin State, so 7. And then University of District of Columbia is coming along the way. So this is going to continue to be a rise. I absolutely think that you guys need to definitely support it in. But I don't want just support, man. We're here to entertain and be the best, and that's what we do. And, of course, check out the HBCU Rugby Classic. We're going to be having it back in Atlanta 2025, so get ready for that as well. And last subject of the day for me, for this, solid hour and a half of this. I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to listen, has been on this long. I mean, it's tough, but hey, this is what we do. We're out here trying to make the changes. I wanted to talk about one of my favorite teams, because after this Rugby World Cup, I was really reminiscing on why I love this 2019 South Africa team. Even though I bet against them to lose against New Zealand, it was easily my favorite team. And I was talking with somebody about this, and I ended up making a tweet about it. And the tweet was basically, wrong one. The tweet was basically, in my short time of playing and watching rugby, which has been 14 years, I started in 2009. March 5th, 2009 was when I officially started playing and watching rugby. I was introduced to it back in 2004, but 2009 is when I officially started watching and paying attention to rugby. The teams that I love the most are the teams that are absolutely body crushing in rugby. It is the 2010 to 2015 All Blacks, the 2014-2019 Black Ferns, the 2016-2017 USA Rugby Women, the 2014 to 2021 Fiji Sevens Men, and 2019 and 2023 Springboks. And for me, there's something to that. Not so much about the teams. Everybody has their own sets and whatnot, but it's how you end up connecting with the team. Again, a lot of people connect either, I also always say, look, my loyalties go to USA Rugby. Like, I'm always going to be loyal to USA Rugby first, men's and women. But one person asked me, do you love the men's team, the USA Rugby? And I had to say, specifically the men's team, I don't love them. I like them. I like them a lot. I'm always going to be loyal because that's home country, as well as Nigeria Rugby. But in terms of what they've produced, no, it's not been particularly lovable for my taste. It's kind of just like something that's there and you hope to improve, but it's something that you're part of the process and you actively are working. For me, I'm actively working to see that improved. The same with the women's side, but I feel like the women's side has been more consistent. And now, there's always some level of bias. The women's side was one of the ones, especially for sevens, that when I was doing early coverage, they were the easiest to be able to have access. I was able to talk to them the most, so I kind of gravitated, and I was also really impressed by the way they played. But I really end up loving these teams the way that they go. And one reason why it always connected with me was since I was a kid, I'd always played smash mouth sports. So with American football, for me, I was a linebacker, fullback, running back. So for me, I knew, we hit, and I love that. In my collegiate times, my favorite college team and favorite football team is the LSU Tigers. We're in the SEC, smash mouth football, even though right now we're playing a little bit more finesse offensive one. But on average, typically, especially in this millennium, LSU has been a strong defensive team. It makes it ache more. It makes it hit more. Teams like the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. These are smash mouth teams that I really gravitated to because I love great defense, great hitting. I don't need a super high score, but I want to hit hard. And, I always wonder, how is it that it connects to other people? So I kind of want to break down, obviously, some of these teams that I love so much, and I think a lot of us have it with it. So kind of first and foremost, obviously, that 2011 to 2015 All Blacks, led by Richie McCaw. You had Carter on it, Manu Nanu, who was actually the real reason why I fell for that team. That was a legendary All Blacks team. And there's been think pieces trying to act like that team didn't play hardly any competition. BS. That team was bangers. It doesn't matter what era they're going to play in. Even if they play 10 years later at that peak stage, they would still be some of the bangest back. They were big, they were fast, and they crushed you. It did not matter what the level is. The level of play was good in 2011 and 2015. It hasn't changed significantly, literally, in 20, 25 years. So I don't know why a think piece would even begin to go into trying to discredit the All Blacks then. But that team is the one that made me come into international rugby. That was a team that was like, all right, yo, this is what the epitome of rugby is supposed to be. They were sleek. Obviously, the uniform, the kits were dope. The guys were quiet, but they had so much swag on the field. Like, you felt the pressure. You felt the pressure. It was whenever I feel like the Haka felt like heavy. It was intimidation. Now I feel like the Haka is done, obviously, because, you know, you have to commemorate, and that's what they do at the beginning. But I don't feel the intimidation factor since that 2015 team basically retired out. Even though Manuanu is over here playing for MLR, but it's not the same guy, obviously. It's like he's older and it just doesn't work the same. But that was my team. That was my team. Next up, I got 2017 USA Rugby Women. This is probably easily my favorite team, I think, ever. Because one, I feel like people underestimate women's rugby in the wildest way. I don't understand why. Like, if you watch it, you'll understand that they're like legitimately dope. I'm sorry. This is the 2017 Black Ferns. 2017 Black Ferns. I'm gonna get to the USA Rugby Women. 2017 Black Ferns, led by the absolute indisputed women's GOAT of all time, Portia Woodman Wiseman. I want to get her last name right. Wycliffe. Portia Woodman Wycliffe. The absolute GOAT. Like, that 2017 was just, oh my God, that was gangbusters. Like, obviously Portia was the preeminent name on that one, but you got like Sarah Harini on there, absolute monster. You had Kendra Coxsedge, monster. Ruby Tui, one of the nicest but dangerous monsters on the team. Like, that team was literally unbeatable. I don't think there's going to be another era that they are not competitive. They are, in my opinion, the equivalent for women's rugby to the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls. Like, they were unfreaking stoppable, fast. Woodman is absolutely crushing people single-handedly, hardest hitters, making the tackles. Man, that 2017 Rugby World Cup was too bad. It was too dope. And the numbers have spoken for it as well, too, being the highest rated one that they ever had. Now, what I was saying before, which is the USA Women's Eagles, 2017 USA Women's Eagles. This is easily my favorite team just in general. Again, I don't think people really respect what was had. I know they didn't end up winning, and I think we ended up getting fourth in that Rugby World Cup. Yeah, I think we ended up getting fourth in that. But that was a team where I go, this is what the U.S. legitimately can be. Why was it so dope? It was because we had the 15s team combined with the 7s team. We had the backs of like Naya, Alev Kelter. We had Cheta Emba, bro. Like, yo, that team gets me so excited. That team gets me so freaking excited. Like, watching them. I mean, oh my God. Like, hold on. I got to say them all right because I can't see it very well on this initial page. But yeah, freaking Thomas, like, man, Rozier, we had Wooden, like Haverland, we had Jessica Javelin. Like, this team was literally an all-star team for USA. Tiffany Faye, the homie Tiffany Faye as a captain for it. Like, I don't like humility sometimes because I don't think people appreciate, like, whenever you're being super humble, like, I get it because, you know, you're holding yourself, but sometimes I do wish that they would just straight up just be like, yo, no, we were great. And the fact that since that time, Emily, for the Rugby World Cup for 2022 last year, and, you know, Rob Kane and Emily Bidwell butting heads in terms of like allowing players to play. And I know the Olympic schedule played in saving bodies, but man, that was truly the version of USA rugby that I expect from both the men and the women. We were fast, we were hard hitting, we were dominant. We definitely were the intimidating factor. Like that women's team was everything. Everything. That is the example that it should have been. I want to see a USA men's 15s team that include Perry Baker, even though now he's getting older and probably would never do it. But that I wish it had included Perry Baker and Carlin Isles more and Danny Barrett in there. And we would have had our sevens teams in the backfield with our strong, stout forwards. And we had our reserves. The ones that played 15 would have been reserves, but they weren't it. They weren't it. Our fastest guys were playing sevens. Our fastest women were playing sevens. And we finally got to see it. And, oh, God. No. Brandon, yeah. Ileana wasn't there yet. I don't think Ileana came until like 2018, 2019. I think she was still in college at that point. But, my God, I absolutely adored that team. And I hope that we can ever get something back like that again. And then, of course, for me, then the next one is the 2014 to basically 2021 Fiji Sevens team. Like, what do you got to say? Like, these dudes are, it's like the most natural sport. Okay, you win 2 Olympics. You absolutely body everybody. You're the biggest on the field. You're the fastest on the field. You're the most spiritual. Like, that's why I was excited for this Fiji 15 team. I'm glad that the Fijian Drew are doing what they do. Because I want to be able to see these guys really dominate even more, because it doesn't make sense for them to dominate in sevens, but not in 15s. You got the size, but I know a little bit of mentality, a little bit of space, but it's getting it in. But this team with led by Hosea Tuva, you had guys like Joshua Vakuri and Abili, Jerry Tuwai, who's an absolute legend. Like, yeah, I mean, that team was just, again, unstoppable. Like, who's gonna do anything against them? And that's why they win 2 golds for the first time ever. Like that's how it goes. That's how it goes, man. Right? Yeah, these men, Brandon Davis goes, these men are who Jack found at the top of the beanstalk. Exactly. Like, these are the giants that we were expecting when you go to the top of the beanstalk and go do some damage. And then, of course, my last favorite teams, 2019 South Africa, 2023 South Africa. 2019 South Africa, I love because I think their forwards obviously were better with the beast. I love the fact, and of course, this one's going to hit for me. Sia Khaleesi was the captain for this team. First black captain for South Africa, and he led them. It led them well, man. This South Africa team, again, doing it again for 2023. This man is quiet power. Great story. He's doing the celebrity thing. Yo, shout out to the fact that he's with Rock Nation. This man is out here doing what I expect from a celebrity, high-end rugby player. And now, he's going to be moving over to Rossing 92 for the top 14. So I don't think he's playing international test rugby for South Africa anymore after this. I think he's aged out. I think he's 34 now. And so by the time the next Rugby World Cup comes, I think he's going to be aging out of this one. But what a heck of a performance. And like I said, this 2023 South Africa team played bully ball. Like, they pounded their teams. And I love it whenever a team is just crush. Like, Kirk the Fox throwing bodies up in there. Like, that's what I want to see. As a USA person, that's what I want to see. I want to see our speed from our sevens team, our power from our big-ass forwards really doing the job. No offense to our 15s forwards and our 15s backs now and our 7s forwards, but that ain't the combination, all right? It ain't the combination that's working. All right, and I want to be able to see that really popping off. Obviously, I think AJ McGinty being in there, but that, again, he's 7s as well too. So I'm talking about exactly what I'm saying. But like, that was what I was all about, man. That's what I expect from the US. That's what I expect from Nigeria. Yo, shout out as one of the emerging sports to be coming up. Yo, population 180 million, all more than 60% under 35, more than 40% under 30, which is wild. That is a nation you got to take advantage of, and strongly are affecting culture, strongly from music to pop culture to movies. Yo, you need to take advantage of these places that understand how to propagate attention. But oh man, anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting excited, man. It gets me hyped up, man. I want to be out and play. Like, I got to get back onto the pitch at some point. But yo, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your favorite teams are. I want to hear from you if you do. But in the meantime, y'all, I feel for this. This one is great. This one is so great. But y'all, that is all that we have for today. Hold on, I gotta set this up right. Man, I'm happy. Thank you for taking the time to tomorrow should be up on Thursday. I'm sorry, should be coming up on Thursday, and that's going to be with Howard University women's coach Lily Aites. Looking forward to being able to continue to bring more conversation. I told you I was going to end up bringing more people in bit by bit by bit. We're going to be working on getting guests up in here a little bit more. I'd love to be able to have a little bit more information and knowledge, because I know you guys are tired of talking to me or listening to me. But definitely check out some of the rest of our catalog. We've had some great conversations from amazing people who are doing incredible things within rugby. And, we're continuing to want to be able to not just develop it, but make it one of the most entertaining, watchable sports in the world, the way that we know that we fell in love with it. Not only that, but a community sport as well, too. Again, don't forget to please like and subscribe this if you get a chance and you love it. Definitely leave a comment if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. Definitely share this around on Spotify. But other than that, y'all, man, I hope that you guys are happy. I hope that you guys are healthy. And most importantly, I hope that you know that regardless of whatever is happening, you are truly, truly highly favored. All right. Until next time, y'all. Cheers.